It was supposed to be unbreakable. Not just another Hollywood love story destined to end in headlines and heartbreak. Not another blended family torn apart by fame, distance, or ego. No, this was different. Or at least, it looked that way. Lisa Bonet, Jason Momoa, Lenny Kravitz. A family forged in love, bound by respect, and celebrated by fans as the blueprint for what modern families could be. Lenny, Lisa's ex-husband and eternal friend, had called Jason my brother. Jason, in turn, wore his title as stepfather to Zoe Kravitz like a badge of honor. Lisa, she seemed at peace, surrounded by two men who respected her and each other equally. For years, they gave the world the rarest of sights, a Hollywood family without drama. Public appearances were warm. Interviews were filled with admiration. Social media moments between Jason and Lenny went viral for being, well, wholesome. But behind every perfect picture, there's always another story. Because when Lisa Bonet and Jason Momoa's marriage shattered, so did the illusion. Suddenly, fans weren't asking how it happened. They were asking something else entirely. Where was Lenny Kravitz? For months, the rock legend, normally so poised, so zen, so in tune, said nothing. No cryptic posts, no media statements, no subtle social gestures. Silence. Until now, in a rare and deeply vulnerable interview, Lenny finally broke the quiet. And his words, they weren't polished. They weren't poetic. They were raw. I should have stopped him. A confession heavy with regret. A sentence loaded with years of love, observation, and perhaps guilt. So what did Lenny Kravitz really mean? What did he see that made him wish he'd spoken up before it was too late? To understand Lenny's haunting words, we need to rewind to the beginning of Hollywood's most unconventional love story. When Lisa Bonet and Lenny Kravitz divorced in 1993, many assumed it would be the end of their bond. They were young, famous, and like so many celebrity couples, destined to drift apart. But they didn't. In fact, they became closer in ways few could understand. Lenny once described Lisa as his best friend. Lisa spoke of him not with bitterness, but reverence. We have so much love for each other, she once said. It's just a different kind of love now. Together, they raised Zoe Kravitz, who grew up surrounded by artistry, bohemian spirit, and above all, unconditional love. It was the type of post-divorce harmony rarely seen, especially in Hollywood. Years later, when Lisa fell in love again, this time with rising star Jason Momoa, many wondered if the magic would fade. How could the new man coexist with the ex-husband? But Lisa wasn't worried, and neither was Lenny. Jason and Lenny met, bonded, and quickly shattered every cynical assumption. Jason once famously said, "Lenny is my brother. We get along great. Our families are blended in the best way." The public ate it up. Photos of Lenny and Jason hugging at Zoe's events went viral. The trio appeared at red carpets, beaming, proving that exes and new partners could thrive together. Fans began calling them Hollywood's healthiest blended family. Zoe, caught in the middle of so much public adoration, shared her love openly. She spoke about how lucky she was to have two father figures who adored and respected each other. "They love each other," she said. "It makes life so much easier." For years, it was all love, all smiles, all unity. But love, even the deepest and most unconditional kind, isn't always enough. Because behind closed doors, even the closest families face cracks. And sometimes those cracks turn into chasms. Jason's career exploded with Game of Thrones, then Aquaman. Suddenly, the once grounded actor was rarely home. The wild, free-spirited man Lisa fell in love with became consumed by Hollywood's demands. Lisa, always deeply spiritual and private, retreated even further from public life. She stayed grounded, rooted in her world of art, meditation, and quiet family moments. Their worlds, once aligned perfectly, began moving in opposite directions. Lenny saw it all. He was still there, still attending family milestones, still sharing dinners, still being Uncle Lenny. But even from the sidelines, it was hard to ignore. The energy shifted, the warmth cooled, and the tension quietly settled in. And yet, through it all, Lenny remained silent, until silence was no longer an option. From the outside, everything still looked perfect. Family vacations, red carpet smiles, birthday tributes on Instagram that read like love letters. But inside the walls of the Momoa household, things were shifting. And those closest to them, like Lenny, could feel it. Jason Momoa's star power wasn't just rising, it was skyrocketing. Back-to-back filming schedules, months away on location shoots, the relentless pull of a career that demanded everything. Time, energy, presence. And Lisa needed something else entirely. Stillness, connection, roots. They had been a perfect match once, the fiery rebel and the grounded mystic. But over time, the fire that once bound them started to burn in different directions. Lisa found herself more and more alone, retreating into the sacred quiet that had always sustained her. Jason found himself pulled into the blinding lights of fame, an identity he had never quite been comfortable with, but one that was now impossible to escape. Sources close to the family whispered of growing distance, of missed calls, of missed birthdays, of two people living side by side, but miles apart emotionally. And Lenny, he wasn't just some distant observer. He was family. He saw the way Lisa's smile dimmed. He heard the tiredness in Jason's voice when they spoke. He felt the widening silence between them at family gatherings. Maybe he wanted to believe they'd find their way back. Maybe he thought, as so many do, that love was enough. But deep down, maybe he knew. Maybe he saw it coming. Maybe he knew the foundation was cracking. And still, he said nothing. Out of respect, out of loyalty, out of fear of overstepping invisible lines. After all, who was he, the ex-husband, to intervene? Maybe that's why the guilt weighs so heavily now. Because sometimes, love means stepping in. Even when it's not your place. Even when it hurts. Even when silence feels safer. But silence, as it always does, eventually breaks. Sometimes with a whisper. Sometimes with an earthquake. When Lisa Bonet officially filed for divorce from Jason Momoa in early 2024, the world stopped for a moment. For fans who had clung to their fairy tale, it felt like betrayal. For those who had watched more closely, it felt inevitable. Their joint statement was calm, composed, carefully worded. We share this news not because we think it's newsworthy, but so that we can go about our lives with dignity and honesty. The love between us carries on, evolving in ways it wishes to be known and lived. But behind the polished words, the heartbreak was real. Jason moved out quietly, reportedly finding refuge with close friends. Lisa retreated further into her private sanctuary. Zoe, caught between two worlds, remained outwardly poised. But insiders said she was heartbroken for both her parents and her second father. The public mourned. Memes, tribute videos, heartfelt tweets poured in. Love is dead. If Jason and Lisa can't make it, who can? Blended families are real, and they're complicated. And Lenny, he said nothing. No public posts, no statements, no cryptic song lyrics, just silence. The man who had once celebrated Jason as brother, the man who had helped build the very image of unity, now watched it all fall apart. Quietly, painfully. Insiders whispered that Lenny was devastated, especially for Lisa, that despite the respect he held for Jason, he couldn't help but wish things had been different. Some even speculated that Lenny, seeing the signs earlier than anyone, struggled with guilt. That maybe, if he had spoken to Jason, truly, bluntly, urgently, it could have made a difference. Maybe if he had warned him, don't let the distance grow. Fight for her. She's not like the others. She won't stay if you forget to show up. Maybe things would be different now. Maybe, maybe not. But guilt doesn't care about logic. Guilt clings to the what-ifs. And in Lenny Kravitz's rarest of moments, when he finally did break his silence, the world got a glimpse of the weight he's been carrying. I should have stopped him. 5 words. 5 words that carried the crushing weight of a family's collapse. Because sometimes, regret isn't about what we did. It's about what we didn't do. And Lenny's silence, however well-intentioned, cost him a piece of the family he once helped nurture. But what exactly did Lenny mean by stop him? And what truth was he finally ready to share with the world? For months he stayed quiet, while headlines screamed, while fans speculated, while Jason and Lisa's love story unraveled before the world's eyes. Lenny Kravitz, forever calm, forever poised, said nothing. Because silence is safe. Because speaking means choosing sides. Because sometimes silence protects the ones you love. But silence can also haunt. When Lenny finally did speak, it wasn't on a talk show. It wasn't in a grand, prepared statement. It was almost casual, almost too vulnerable, almost like he didn't mean for it to carry the weight it did. In a quiet moment during an interview about his latest album, the inevitable question came, "How do you feel about Jason and Lisa's split?" Lenny paused. The man who always found the right words this time didn't have them. He looked down, nodded softly, and said, "They'll both be fine. There's love there. Always will be." But then, almost as if unable to help himself, he added, "Still, I should have stopped him." The room froze. So did the interviewer. It wasn't rehearsed. It wasn't filtered. It was raw. Immediately, the internet lit up. What does he mean by stopped? Did Lenny know Jason was pulling away? Did he regret not warning Lisa or Jason sooner? Speculation ran wild. Some fans thought it meant Lenny saw Jason change, but chose to stay quiet. Others thought it was deeper, that Lenny watched love fade and didn't speak up when he could have. But for those who know Lenny, the meaning was clear. This wasn't about scandal, or betrayal, or messy infidelity. This was about something quieter, and far more devastating. Neglect, complacency, distance. Lenny wasn't saying Jason had done something terrible. He was saying that sometimes doing nothing at all is what destroys love. He saw Jason drift. He saw Lisa retreat. And as the family's spiritual anchor, he chose peace over interference. Now, he regrets that choice, because sometimes love needs disruption. Sometimes people need to be shaken awake. Sometimes silence isn't love, it's surrender. And if Lenny's confession taught us anything, it's that even when the damage is done, reflection hits the hardest when you realize what you didn't say. Not long after his vulnerable admission, friends close to Lenny shared more. This wasn't bitterness. This wasn't anger. This was heartbreak. Lenny had truly embraced Jason Momoa as family. They weren't pretending for cameras. They weren't playing nice for Lisa's sake. They were bonded gym sessions, family trips, birthdays, Father's Day tributes. Jason once called Lenny, "My brother for life," and Lenny returned that love every step of the way. So watching Jason grow distant wasn't easy. Watching Lisa slowly detach wasn't easy. Watching their marriage fall apart from spiritual misalignment wasn't easy. But hardest of all, knowing he said nothing. "I thought they would figure it out," Lenny reportedly told a close friend. "I didn't want to be the guy who meddled." But deep down, he knew. Sometimes families need truth. Sometimes they need uncomfortable conversations. Sometimes someone on the outside, but still inside, needs to step up and say, "You're losing her. You need to fight harder. Don't let this slip away." Lenny didn't say it, and the marriage slipped through the cracks. That's what "I should have stopped him" really meant. Not that Jason mistreated Lisa, not that there was scandal, but that Lenny watched a man he loved let go of a woman who deserved more. And he stayed silent. To this day, insiders say Lenny and Jason are still respectful, still connected through Zoe, still family in the way broken families often remain. But it's different now. Not angry, not cold, just distant. A natural shift after the collapse of something they all believed would last. For Lisa, the future looks peaceful. She remains private, focused on healing, family, and living quietly outside of Hollywood's noise. For Jason, it's unclear, romantically linked to others, busy with new projects, yet rarely speaking about the divorce publicly. And for Lenny, the rock star remains the rock, touring, creating, supporting Zoe endlessly. But that regret lingers, not because he wanted control, not because he believed he could have saved them, but because watching people you love make mistakes and choosing silence stays with you forever. In the end, Lenny's words echo louder than he ever expected, not because they expose scandal, but because they expose something far more relatable, that even the wisest, most grounded souls sometimes stay silent when love needs to be defended the most. And when that silence breaks, it doesn't fix what's broken. It simply becomes part of the heartbreak itself. In Hollywood, time moves fast. Couples split. New romances bloom. Headlines shift focus, and yesterday's heartbreak becomes today's trivia. But for those who lived it, time doesn't heal quite so neatly. Lisa Bonet has retreated gracefully from the public eye. Always deeply private, the divorce pushed her even further inward. She no longer walks carpets beside Jason, no longer posts cryptic musings about love. For Lisa, peace is now the priority. Raising Zoe, living quietly, healing privately. Jason Momoa, on the other hand, remains a man of the world. Public sightings with rumored new romances, surfing trips, movie sets, smiling through pain, or truly moving on. No one knows for sure. But even as he navigates his next chapter, the shadow of Lisa and their family still follows. How could it not? For years, they were each other's mirror. The wild and the grounded, the passionate and the peaceful. And now, just fragments of a love once envied by millions. But in this story, it is Lenny Kravitz's quiet confession that lingers the most. I should have stopped him. 5 words that speak volumes. Not just about Jason, not just about Lisa, but about regret. Because even in the most progressive, enlightened, loving families, silence can be deadly. It's easy to watch from the sidelines, trusting that love will fix itself. But love, even strong love, doesn't fix itself. It needs tending. It needs voices. It needs people brave enough to say, "You're messing this up. Don't let her drift. Wake up." Lenny didn't say those words in time. And when love fell apart, his silence became part of the story. Not the villain, but not the hero either. Today, he and Jason remain cordial, bonded forever through Zoe, and by memories that are equal parts sweet and sour. But their brotherhood changed, softened, a little quieter than before, because some words, when said too late, become echoes. And in the end, Lenny's confession became exactly that. An echo of a love story gone quiet, not with shouting, not with scandal, but with the heaviest ending of all, silence. In Hollywood, relationships often end with explosions. This one ended with a whisper, and perhaps that whisper speaks louder than anything else. Because when families break, it's often not because someone did too much, but because those who could have stopped it did too little. For more of the latest news, check out this video.